The rain was pounding against my windows when my front door suddenly swung open, and my drunk neighbor stumbled inside, wrapped her arms around me, and whispered the strangest words I had ever heard. "Please be my husband for one day." I froze, because the woman standing in my living room was not only soaked from the storm, she was crying like her entire world had just collapsed. Her name was Emily, my neighbor from the house across the street. I had lived beside her for almost 2 years, yet we had barely exchanged more than polite greetings. She was usually cheerful, always rushing somewhere, always carrying a phone in one hand and a coffee in the other. But that night she looked completely different. Her hair was wet and messy, her eyes were red from crying, and the smell of alcohol filled the room. She had obviously entered the wrong house in the darkness. But when she saw me, she seemed to believe she had finally found the person she desperately needed. I gently helped her sit on the couch and told her she was in the wrong house. She stared at me for several seconds before tears rolled down her cheeks. Then she whispered again that she needed a husband for one day. I thought it was something she had said because she was drunk, so I offered her water and called her sister. But Emily suddenly grabbed my sleeve and begged me not to send her home yet. There was something in her frightened expression that made me stop. Before I continue, if you believe kindness can give someone a second chance when they need it most, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Shadow of Kindness. Sometimes one small act of compassion can become the reason someone keeps going. Emily eventually fell asleep on the couch. I placed a blanket over her and stayed nearby, listening to the rain. The next morning, she woke up embarrassed and horrified when she realized where she was. She apologized repeatedly, explaining that she had been drinking because she had just learned something that had shattered her life. Her father, the man who had raised her after her mother died, was seriously ill. He had spent years working to give Emily everything she needed, and now his condition had suddenly become much worse. But that wasn't the only reason she had asked me to pretend to be her husband. Emily explained that her father had one final wish. He wanted to see his daughter settled and happy before his health declined further. Emily had been engaged once, but the relationship had ended after her fiancé cheated on her. Her father knew about it, but Emily had hidden how deeply it had hurt her. Now, with his condition worsening, she had panicked. She had told him that she was married, hoping to give him peace. The lie had grown larger than she could control. Her father wanted to meet her husband that weekend. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and explained that she had no one else she trusted enough to ask. She wasn't asking me to truly marry her. She only needed someone kind enough to stand beside her for one day, shake her father's hand, and let an old man believe his daughter would not be alone after he was gone. I should have said no. It was complicated, emotional, and completely unreasonable. But I remembered my own father, who had passed away years earlier. I remembered how many things I had wanted to tell him but never did. So I agreed. That Saturday, Emily and I drove to the hospital. She was nervous the entire way, while I kept wondering whether I was making a terrible mistake. But the moment her father saw us, his tired face brightened. Emily introduced me as her husband, and I played along. Her father reached for my hand with surprising strength and thanked me for loving his daughter. Those words hit me harder than I expected. During the visit, I watched Emily become the little girl her father still saw beneath the adult woman. She adjusted his blanket, fixed his pillow, laughed at his old jokes, and quietly wiped her tears whenever he looked away. Her father told me stories about Emily's childhood, including how she once spent an entire summer saving coins to buy him a birthday gift because she knew money was tight. I realized then that Emily wasn't afraid of being alone. She was afraid of losing the last person who made her feel like she belonged somewhere. Over the next few days, the pretend marriage became something neither of us expected. I helped Emily visit her father, brought groceries to her house, and reminded her to eat when grief made her forget. She slowly stopped drinking. She began talking about her dreams again, and somewhere between hospital hallways, quiet dinners, and long conversations on the porch, I discovered that the woman who had accidentally entered my house was no longer just my neighbor. She had become someone I cared about. Then, one evening, her father passed away peacefully. Emily broke down in my arms outside the hospital. She kept apologizing for bringing me into her complicated life, but I told her she hadn't ruined anything. She had reminded me that sometimes people enter our lives by accident and stay because our hearts make room for them. Months passed. Emily rebuilt her life slowly. She returned to work, stopped pretending she was fine, and began volunteering at a local support center for people caring for sick parents. I was there beside her more often than either of us expected. One rainy evening, Emily stood outside my door again. This time she wasn't drunk. She wasn't confused. She didn't have a desperate request. She simply smiled and asked if she could come inside. I opened the door. She stepped closer and whispered that she had once asked me to be her husband for one day because she was terrified of losing someone she loved. Then she admitted that somewhere along the way, she had started hoping I might stay for much longer. I took her hand and told her that this time she didn't need a pretend husband. She could have the real one. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe to Shadow of Kindness. Your support helps these stories reach people who may need a little hope today. And before the story ends, comment "Kindness can change a life." If you believe that sometimes the person who enters your life by accident can become the person your heart was waiting for. Because Emily entered the wrong house that rainy night, but somehow she found the right home.